Episode 47, the Playaz Club podcast. Revision is the topic of today. We're looking at all over, and with me, the person that always seems to have a bird's eye view. Lex, how do you do it?
That's just how it is, but
Revision is the topic. What do you think revising something means in the context of art?
revising,
Mhm.
in my opinion, it's something that you do to alter it to make it better,
Yeah, sure.
so that it benefits not only your, how would you say, your skill set as an artist, but also the project itself.
I think revision allows you to have a deeper understanding of what you're trying to say. It's just, yeah, editing in a way that allows your message to resonate deeper, I think. Get everything out of the way that you're really trying to say.
True. Kind of throw away all the excess that you don't need.
Hmm. What do you think? What kind of emotional toll goes on in an artist when they're revising something? Because I feel as though it could be exhausting in the ways that I feel as though it almost feels as though as a bit of rejection, just in the way that you have to get rid of things that you thought would be initially in the final product of what you created.
Yeah.
But also exhilarating in the way that you don't necessarily get what you initially planned for, but
Mhm.
there's stuff that you could never even write or script in a way that it happens. So I think that's revision can be a plus in that way. What do you think about that? Or how do you feel about the emotional toll that goes on there?
I mean, I do relate to what you said about kind of the negative perspective, because pretty much all that you're putting into your art is kind of personal.
Hmm.
So it does seem like in a way, a personal rejection, not from like an outside source, but like you yourself
Yeah,
said, "Oh, it's not good enough."
a direct. Where do you draw that line as good and bad?
I don't think anything is necessarily bad. It's just not the right timing for the right project.
Hmm.
Do you feel that as well? Because like you throw something away for a certain project, but you almost pick it up and put it into another one that you start later on.
Yeah, I feel as though whenever I step away from a project and then I'm come back to it,
Hmm.
I have a different sense of perspective, I guess. Because I think I'm able to view it as an audience member rather than the creator of it.
Yeah,
And whenever I feel as though I'm able to edit something from the audience's perspective, you're couch quarterbacking, I guess you'd say.
pretty much. I mean,
I think that's whenever you're able to make a quality product just because you're able to, I guess, relate to the audience.
yeah, kind of take a step back and view it from their perspective as to what could you relate to if you weren't me, so
Mm.
to say.
It's not as such, you're not so close to it as.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? How do you feel whenever you step away from a project and you're able to come back to it and make a revision to it? Is it is it something that is good or what word is that?
I'd say it's good. It's good in the sense that you come back with a different perspective than you had initially.
Mhm.
Say if it was a project that you started a couple of years ago, of course you're not going to look at it from the same lens. And I feel like a lot of projects benefit from that, from you actually coming back and saying, "Well, oh, okay, like I had a good idea, but I just couldn't see past it.
Mhm.
Now I could build upon that with what I know now." It's almost like a nostalgic feeling too once you come back and you get a understanding of how you kind of thought a couple of years ago as opposed to now.
Do you think it's the same project if you're able to edit something years later with the same vision per se?
I don't think it is.
It's a totally different one.
Because there's a part of me that would fight to say, yeah, it is, because I mean, it's still the structure of what you based it on when you started working on it. But I feel like the changes that you make to it, once you come back to it, it does kind of flip it into something else. It's no longer that particular project in a way.
Hmm. What do you think are some of the challenges that go with letting go of the original vision of a project?
It's kind of that emotional toll. I would say that's the biggest challenge you got to get over.
Mhm.
Of course, you got the challenge of, you're, say you don't have quite the skill set yet to actually create that. But I feel like at any point, yeah, you're just way too close to the project. And it kind of gets in the way of being able to say, hey, well, that's not working. And it's never going to work. So we got to replace it. Like, we got to think of from a whole different area of standing, like, just so that it may be what it's supposed to be.
How do you know that, what it's supposed to be?
I feel like I get that feeling when it's just not necessarily you don't know where to go with it, but you just feel at peace with what it is at that moment. I feel like that's when you get that sense of, okay, I don't need to tweak anything anymore.
Just to let it pass? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you definitely have to have a mental flexibility, I guess.
Especially how he said about the concept of time and letting it sit. I feel like it could go for the same reasoning as to not only working on the project, but saying afterwards, saying, okay, it's done. Let it sit there. Is it truly done? Or did I just kind of overwork it to the point where I got burnout? Because I've had that too, where I thought something was done, but I just kept pushing it to a point where I couldn't get anything more for it.
You kept revising it or
Yeah, quote unquote
revising?
revising it. But it's almost a level
Yeah,
of,
I think there is a term. There's a point where you reach diminishing returns as to it's just nothing good is happening. There's no clarity. There's no add of impact. There's no
yeah,
emotional deepening or any way. So yeah, I think that's whenever there's a good time to walk away.
yeah, it doesn't add any depth to it at all. You don't have any feeling towards it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I think that kind of goes into a bit with your intuition.
mhm,
Like, what do you think? How does that play into it? Your intuition?
intuition.
Because I think it's a bit as the same as revising in the way that it's always changing
Yeah,
and it's a continuous process. I think it's more of a feeling because I think revising it makes your art feel made felt rather than seen.
go into that. What do you mean about that?
Because I feel as though when your art is seen, it's just a picture on the wall. But whenever it's
Okay.
felt, it's something that impacts you emotionally. It moves you
Yes.
into something that is a feeling. And I think for any kind of art to do that is quote unquote good art.
True.
Because I think you could be the best painter, but paint meaningless pictures. And a bad painter that makes emotional art, I don't know. I think it's more valuable to emotional artists.
Damn. So how do you distinguish that? Like, hey, they put more emotional aspects into this.
I think it's more subjective as to say, because I think someone could say, well, that painting made me feel something. Just because it didn't make you
Yeah,
feel something doesn't mean that they're not an emotional artist. So I guess it's subjective in that way.
kind of depends.
How do you feel about that?
Because I would say that too. If I saw a painting that was, it's like you said, they're skillful, and it's
Technically correct.
yeah, lines are fucking perfect, aesthetics of like colors just popping out. It looks amazing, but it's just like it's just a bunch of shapes to me.
Mm.
But like this swirl and almost this carelessness that went into it, I feel like, in my opinion, that's more valuable to me because it almost does give off that vibe. You're just creating it to simply create it. It's not because, hey, I had to perfect it and make it look like this because I knew people were going to judge it.
Mm.
So I needed.
What about that do you think is more valuable, or what do you think about that? Do you find value?
When a more careless approach, or just
Yeah, or just that the careless approach as to making you emotionally aware.
careless. And it's not necessarily that it's careless. It's just, it's just, yeah. This one looks more like fine tuned
Mm.
in a way.
When you say careless, are you saying like free, I guess? Or
Careless within like the expression wise, and I don't care what anybody's really going to say about it. This is just what I wanted to express with it. You know, this isn't necessarily meant for the judges that are on the table. It's just meant for regular people walking around that can, like you said, look at it and resonate with it and feel that within those just swirls or like splatters or some shit like that, you know?
whenever you're revising something, even a small change can make such a big difference.
Of course.
How do you manage that impact whenever you're revising something?
So you're saying in the perspective of when like the small detail changes the whole project pretty much.
Yeah,
I used to get very upset about it because I mean when you initially start you're focused on the big targets.
your
These
long term goal,
yeah,
the end.
these are what you're supposed to focus on because it's what's gonna get you here. But as you get through it, like you said, you know, you realize that the small detail is what changed this whole project, not the big detail. So it kind of fine tunes you in a way how we said about, you know, the roses on the side of the road. You start to pay attention to them. Say that down. This batch of 12 adds to this whole field of like thousands of roses. And that's what makes it look so complete. It's not just that, hey, someone said I need 1,000 roses to sit here. It's just that they took care of each batch in its, how would you say, not like in its entirety, but
In its initial phase,
yeah, like they cared for it enough to say, okay, this smallest detail is what's gonna
this seed is gonna
pretty much
make
make
a
this
field of
whole
roses.
field look good, you know? So in a project, it kind of makes you focus more on the smaller details that kind of fine tune it to get your end goal that you initially wanted.
That's such a good point because I feel as though I don't know. I think especially I had this perspective as though revisions only come at the end. But with that idea, it's although that you're revising through the whole process.
Yeah,
Go into that a little
revising through the whole process.
as to yeah, because you said you're taking care of the plant the whole way, so it is a rose at the end.
Yeah.
So in a way, you're revising.
Hmm.
You're
If you say, well, this spot gets too much sun, they're gonna burn your one. I need to get this. I need to pick it up. I need to.
you're maintaining it.
You know, yeah, it's little things like that. What was the initial question before that?
That I initially took that revisions were only at the end, but revision takes place through the whole process with that type of idea.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I feel like that's kind of, you learn that over time. Like kind of how we said, you know, you're really focused on the end goal.
Mhm.
I need to make big process progress, not small progress along the way.
Mhm.
But in like how we said, you know, you're revising the whole process all the way. You're kind of you're breaking down a project, but you're also understanding it deeper, like how we said, you know. you get more of an emotional connection to it. You
Makes more
feel,
impact.
yeah, you feel that you put more into it when you're revising all the way through. Because I feel like it can, to a certain extent, it can be overwhelming to just revise at the end. Because then, in my perspective, I used to revise at the end and then get overwhelmed and kind of, how would you say, discouraged in a way because now you gotta go back
You're starting from the beginning.
all the way from the front because it changed it. That small little detail that came up and said, "Well, I got to change this," and then it flipped the whole project. So
It
now I got
almost
to draw
interrupts
this
the
back.
timeline.
Yeah. So it kind of almost gave me a perspective as to like, okay, well, anything I put into this project is useless, man, because at the end it's just gonna be something different. Like,
Mhm.
so it is better to revise it all the way through.
Mm.
The tension that you would get from having a set deadline for a project, how would that affect your revising process? Would you kind of just try to, or would you actually go through how we said
I
you
feel
would
I've
take
made
your
that
time?
mistake before as to trying to meet a deadline, revising it in a way that is time management, but managed with the time. But
Yeah,
I feel as though the quality definitely suffers with the project because I think it's rushed. You know,
yeah. You're just trying to get it out. You're not, like we said, you're not actually feeling it the whole way through.
you're not trying to stick to the initial plan or the vision. It's just freelance.
Yeah, it's pretty much just up in the air. Like
Mm-hmm.
you got a deadline, but who knows if it's gonna hit, like you said, because the quality got pushed back a little bit. Say if you got some time with it or spent more time with it, then it would have been worth it. That's great.
And how do you manage revision within deadlines?
Honestly, I'm terrible at it. I miss so many deadlines.
It's just a goal.
Because I mean, no, it's just the perfection aspect of it all. You know, I'm revising, but I'm a little too critical when revising at points.
Taking it
Whereas,
a bit far.
yeah, where I know it could benefit it from pushing it that far within my revisions, but at the same time, it almost gets to that point of how we said, like overworking it, you know? So I kind of would get to those points as to like, well, I want something that's perfect, but perfect is never going to be here. It's always just going to be what it
Stop
is.
looking for perfect.
Yeah. Or that, or just not being able to say it's done.
Mhm.
This is, it doesn't need anymore. I always have that issue with projects.
Saying it doesn't need anyone.
Yeah, or like just simply saying, you know, like it's, the project is finished. Like, that's it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you this. Whenever you're in the revision process, you ever find yourself having enough,
Not having enough.
not having enough to edit? Because I think it's good. Because I found it's gooder and gooder. It's better to have a lot of content that you can cut away from rather than not enough content that you can't cut away from or more options.
Yeah, I've had that
Because I
a
think
lot of times.
going back and forth from the creative mind and the revising mind are completely different. I think it completely fucks with the project's chemistry and
Yeah.
general direction.
So I'd say the creative aspect is very open, and the revising aspect is very critical in a way. It's still open, but it's
It's more
looking for
close. It's
it's
looking for flaws, yeah.
it's looking for all the shit you fucked up. Like,
Mhm.
but creatively, it just says if you mess up, we can fix it
If you
somehow,
if you think it, do it.
and we'll just mess with it later on.
No. we'll just edit it later.
Yeah. Which that's interesting, like revising doesn't need to necessarily be taught to you as an artist over time. It's just always there, even when you just started the creative process. Because you just have that, I don't know if you would call it intuition
I think it's
in a
an
way.
initial criticism.
Yeah, that just says like, hey, at some point we're just gonna edit it.
Mhm.
So just go for
When do you draw that point where, because I think I've had a point where I'm just as though I'm just like, I'm just going to create and I'm
it. Yeah.
not going to have a editing mind. I'm not going to try and edit it because it's hard to do anything that way. It's like you're taking two steps forward and then one step back.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Because I also agree with revising right away from the beginning, but where do you draw the line as to you're too critical of yourself that you write one line of a song and you're like, nah, that can't be it. It's like the first,
I've done that too.
first line.
They're just like, bro, how are we supposed to work all of this? So yeah. But I don't know. I had to get to a space too on that where it was like, okay, revising is a thing, but like it's not revising if you're doing it right off the bat. Like I said, first line is just like, yeah, you're just being your biggest critic at that point. Like you're thinking about trends, you're thinking about other rappers that came before you. It's all that shit as opposed to, I'm just doing my creative duty, like I'm just trying to fine tune it. It's like you never started this shit, bro. One line is not any progress. That's like 5% of the project.
No one really even remembers the first line of the song.
No, it's the ones that hit because they come later on. You worked into that.
The punch line.
Yeah. So I would feel that it would be better to start revising at maybe like 15% in the project. You're safe. At least you got some ball rolling.
You at
You
least
know,
have some ground.
if you're way too critical, 25, 50%, you start reviving. Like, did I say reviving?
Start reviving.
You start reviving that dead ass project. You start revising that shit, because I had to get to that point where it's like, yeah, I'm being too critical right off the bat. Okay, I need to wait.
Mhm.
I need to get into the project and then start to critique it because then it's actually something
You
at that
have,
point.
yeah. But going to the part where not having enough to edit, not having enough ground.
Not having enough ground. I would feel that like I didn't have enough ground just because of that perfection aspect of it all.
Going into the editing process?
Yeah, like I don't have anything because like the stuff that I have, even if I had a lot, so to say, I would count it as I don't have anything because like this doesn't work. This doesn't work. Like I'm already critiquing everything before I find out if it does work with
If it even does.
Because as an artist, I don't know if everybody runs into it. Let us know in the comments if you cringe at your work all the time. Because that was another thing is like if I were editing this or something like that, it would be hard for me to choose good clips or bad clips because I'm just cringing the whole time. That's like the whole thing is
Watching.
I can't put this out, and I can't tweak anything because I don't have anything better, like so it would be things like that. Too less, too much. If I had too much to work with in my revising process, it'd be the same thing. I have all this, but nothing is gonna. All of it is cringe. I can't let this out. Nobody's gonna like that,
No one's
like
gonna watch it. Yeah, I
yeah,
definitely feel that too. But I feel so there has to be a sense of non-judgment also when you're creating things because there's gonna be always I think whenever you're creating, you're gonna create something bad eventually,
Yeah,
or
it's a
something
given.
that someone's not gonna agree with, but or it's cringe as hell.
Yeah, someone's gonna tell you it's cringe. Like they're gonna tell you they don't like it, whatever.
I agree with that. The editing process, it's
But
like
yeah,
cringe, but
how do you get
I
past that though? How are you able to edit?
I try to view it almost as though I'm an audience member.
So how is the process of detaching that much though, as to where you're like, that's not me, bro. Like
Well,
that's somebody else I'm watching,
I
you
don't
know?
think like, yo, that's not me. But
But like as an audience, you're like, I don't know that person. I'm just watching this
true,
as
true.
like a random
I see that.
video.
How what was the question?
How do you detach like with that level of it? Like you're an audience member, you're I kind of phrased it bad, like you're not like,
That's
oh,
not.
that's not me, you know, like you're shaming yourself or something.
Yeah.
But just like as an audience member, I don't know this guy. You know, he's just somebody on the internet. How do you go from like that's me and that's cringe to I'm just an audience member that's just I stumbled upon this and I'm watching.
Hmm. How do I detach from it? That's a good question, man.
How do you get that level of detachment?
I think it's just the openness to create because I feel as though creating so much, you have to have a level of detachment.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're critical of everything you create, you will never create anything.
Yeah,
I think to have a level of detachment is to have a sense of creativity in the way that it allows you to be curious about your evolution, I guess.
I can see that.
Because I think about it as though almost who I am at that time rather
Mm-hmm.
than who I am at this moment.
Like
So
your identity is tied to that.
yeah, so I think I am able to detach from it in that way
Yeah,
as to yeah, that's how I thought at the time
damn.
rather than that's who I am right now.
That's crazy because I'll be like, dude, that's me. Like, I'll resonate too much with that where it's like, yeah, that is your identity. But like it is. But like you said, it's
Yeah,
at
it's
the
true.
time, you know? It's
Mhm.
not overall like 10 years from now, I'm going to be that person, you know? Well, that's interesting. Shit.
Do you how do you manage that sense of detachment? Because I feel as though whenever you finish a sense of work, you
Mhm.
have to let it go
You got to kick that bitch out the neck.
and let it fly.
um, I
Or
say,
I think even allowing someone to buy your work in a way is,
or like,
in a
yeah,
sense of cringe, is like, yeah,
judge it and you're like showing someone like, look, I made this. Or like,
yeah.
you have to have a certain level of, I don't know, like, it's not so and so detachment, like, I don't care about it, but it's just, I guess it's more of a understanding that I know, like we said, some people aren't going to like it. It's real subjective. Some people are going to tell me, hey, dude, like, shit, you've been putting in work. And someone's going to be like, dude, you've been working on this whole time? Like,
Mhm.
I thought you were doing big shit, you know? So it's just coming into that, you know, like I can care about it, but I can't care about it too much to where if someone gives me their honest negative opinion, it stunts my whole creativity or like, you know,
Or even your own negative opinion.
that too, you know, like I would hide projects. Like, oh, I haven't been doing shit, you know, like I haven't been doing anything, but I have like 30 things that are behind this wall, you know, but I'm so
Different products, but
critical or like cringing at it all because I'm too close, you know. So that when I do show it to people and they say, "Well, Dan, like you've been sitting on
I
this whole
actually
time," like,
enjoy it. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just over time you get that understanding of it, you know. Kind of come to terms with it. I wouldn't say that. you're wrong if you haven't gotten to that point as an artist. It's just inherent. You're gonna be right next to that fucker, because it's your baby.
I think over time, over a lot of projects, it just comes natural,
Yeah, but
just on the journey. How do you think revision adds to your personal growth?
I think revision in itself, it
Is
it is personal growth or just growth in general. It's pretty much what visually shows you your growth over time.
because if you think about it, revision is continuously changing,
Yeah.
and that's what growth is: continuous change.
So that pretty much they just walk hand in hand. They're
Mm.
one and the same almost. Because once you revise so many times, then you kind of get a rhythm as to how you approach revising a project or just different ways of revising projects just because you've done it in like past ones.
Yeah, the fastest way,
Yeah.
just tricks. Yeah, it feels though change and revision. I think revision just gives you a sense of impact or growth.
It gives you a sense of, you get a feeling that, you're more open to constant change, like we said, because it's just everything that you're going to work on is going to need revision.
Yeah.
Can you can you count it overall as the initial vision if I mean
It's altered.
you kept a small part of the initial vision, but like everything else on top is different?
Mm.
Is it the same
I think it
project?
would be different, wouldn't it? I think it would be an altered vision.
Because is it the same as like a girl going in the changing room, putting on a dress that's like blue, and that was the initial color she wanted when she came to the store,
Mhm.
but then she threw on a black one, and the black one was better. It's the same woman, different dress.
What's the point in that?
Because we said like, is it a different project if you add on to it, but you kept like the initial.
Is it a different dress? Yes.
Damn.
Wait, no. I don't know.
In that sense, is it like okay, it's same pattern, flowers, same
Just a
strap,
different color. Yeah.
different color.
Is it the same dress?
Is she different?
Is she different for what?
Is she different for wearing the black one instead of the blue one? Is she a new woman? Is she not the same woman that she was when she put on the blue one?
I think her vision's changed.
Because I mean, I feel like it. I
But
feel like it does.
she felt the other one felt better.
I feel like it does change it because yeah, like okay, blue one, she put it on. She's awkward. She's like, oh no, it kind of hugs my hips a little too
This is what I
tight.
was gonna buy.
It looked good in the picture online. I thought it would look good on me. Maybe not. We'll try this black one. And then she tries the black one, and she's mad confident. She's ready to talk to anybody, do anything. Man, I just feel so free in this shit. So, in a way, she kind of is a new woman because it changed the perspective.
I would say so.
Damn. So, so I guess it is a different project, even if it started from your initial plan, but you added onto it. It's a different project.
That's interesting. That leads me into thinking: is any vision original? How does revision go into contributing to your originality, your authenticity? If you're editing at the very beginning through the end, is there ever an original vision that gets made?
I wouldn't say that like anything is necessarily original. Like you made it,
Mm,
but like say in your editing process, you saw something that someone else did in their editing process and you implemented it. it's not originality. You took it from that person. You just it's more influence than anything.
But how do you think of the comparison of you're almost comparing it to your original vision versus the final product?
Damn.
Does anyone ever make this original vision, or is the final product always different?
I think the final project is always different. I think well
That's
shit.
interesting
It depends on
because an idea goes through evolution in a way in your mind is whenever it comes to life.
yeah. Shit. I mean, let us know in the comments.
Has anything
Let
you
us know in
ever
the
have
comments.
you ever had an original thought? Yes. Let
Have
us
you ever
know.
been original in your motherfucking life? You always piggybacking off of another book.
So whenever you go into collaborating with revising, what does that look like?
Collaborating or revising. I mean, I'm horrible with collaborations altogether. I was too coded as the lone wolf type, you know. I don't like bringing anybody in to help me or say like, "Hey, you need help on this," yeah. But in the sense of collaborating and revising, I feel like it's a lot more easier in a sense to revise the project if you have another person to bounce off of.
Yeah. I think it just gives you another perspective and what angle, how to look at it.
Plus, if you're kind of hitting a wall as to what needs to be added or taken away from the project, maybe they see it and they said, okay, well, we take that out. Maybe we could put this. What do you think about this? Or something like that. You know, it kind of fuels your motivation to keep revising a project too. If you have someone that's there that has a good attitude about it. And anyways, you know, you can't have somebody that's like, we gotta work on this.
We gotta revise again.
What do I gotta do?
We gotta edit it.
I don't know how to do that, bro. You know, like, you gotta have somebody that's like, oh well shit, like you're kinda hitting a wall. Alright, well let's think about this. And then they just like push you over and they just hop on the shit. They start doing
Hmm. What ways does that challenge your initial belief?
I would challenge is it tenfold, man. Like someone's not gonna have your fucking
I think that's
vision, you
that's a
know?
direct conflict in a way.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, you want what? Nah, I don't think so. Maybe we'll do this, you know? We'll add this instead. You're like, well, my initial plan was based off of that one thing.
How do you accept that 100% of your initial ideas will probably never go into a project with a collaboration?
Shit. Before I would take it way too personal.
Mhm.
As to like, okay, well then why the fuck am I bringing an idea, bro? Like,
Why am I here?
if you're gonna tell me every time that we're not gonna use it, why the fuck am I working on this shit too? Like, that would just put me on something else, bro. Like, I'll come bring something else. But at the same time, you gotta hit that realization that okay, maybe it's not this idea.
Mhm.
You can get rejected from the group like 50 times, but the 51st time they may tell you, okay, we're running with yours. But yeah, it is. It does suck to be in that field of like everybody's saying that like no, this is trash. Jane's idea is way better. We're gonna go with Jane, and you're like, fuck Jane, all right? I worked on this shit till like 3 in the morning, bro. I do this shit. And you're gonna tell me we're not gonna use it. All right, cool. Yeah.
How do you accept using 50% or 75% of your project?
I mean, hell.
Because I could feel as though changing your project could be. It's like
Oh my
it's not what
god.
I made.
You you walk in the surgery room and they're just
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Chopping and screwing your song.
Yeah. They're like, dude, we slowed it down. We put some reverb. You're like, no, dude. They're like, yes, look at it. I mean, even at that, sometimes I would have an issue with it because it's like, you're going to take what, but you're going to leave what? No, it all goes together, man. The whole vision is this. You can't take this 5% out because that's not what it is.
True. It's a different song.
But
different project.
if it does,
if it works, it works.
But that's kind of the thing is kind of what you're
When
asking
does it
me is
work?
like, how do you know?
When does it work?
How do you know it's because it's going to work
Mm-hmm.
and it's for the good of the project? You know, like
Mm-hmm.
what? Who's to say? This is what I always would worry about: is who's to say they don't take it and they implement it into the overall project, and then by the end of it, they just take it out. Or like they modify it so much where like it sounds like it, but it doesn't. To where like
it's not recognizable.
You can't use it, because like someone's gonna come back to you and be like, "Bro, this sounds like this," like that's what I would hate about it because it's like, damn, okay, you took that little part, and now I gotta add something to this because you took that from that, so I can make this sound better still. Because what do you feel about that? Like if they don't use, say they took 75% of your project, put it in, but they left you with a 25%. Do you build upon that 25% or do you just throw?
They've already built 75%.
Yeah, they've already took 75% and they're utilizing it, but you got left with the 25% of your project that was left. Do you build upon it? Or do you just say, well, they took the 75%, the project is gone?
Hmm. I think it's an incomplete idea at that point. With the 25%,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just.
Would you throw
I would
it?
throw
Maybe I'm a hoarder because I would,
it.
because I would take that 25% and be like, I can resuscitate
And
you.
recreate it.
I could fucking revive you like Frankenstein, dude. And you could be better than what they took from you. I could put better into it.
Hmm. Do you feel as though that kind of holds back from the initial project? Or what do you mean by that? Yeah.
By reviving that bitch,
Yeah, by
hit that bitch
yeah.
with some lightning. But no, I would say, of course, if you go back into it and it has a 25%, like we said a while ago, you change it, it's not going to be your initial plan because they took your initial plan pretty much. 75%, you might as well took of 100.
It's like fucking structure. Yeah.
Take 100, bro. But I would take that 25%, add on to it, but it wouldn't be the initial plan. It would be something different entirely. Different. It's not the bitch with the same dress that has two different colors. This literally has ripples on it. It's a different dress. Like,
that's interesting. Recycling ideas that way.
I don't know. Do you feel that could kind of like, is that beneficial overall as an artist, or are you kind of living in the past in a way? You try to revive your projects.
I think it can. I think it could be helpful for you to create projects that way. But I think doing it back to back, it allows you to. I think you'll be creating a lot of similar things.
True.
Like
Damn.
you'll be too niche down.
Damn. Do you think you would almost recreate, like unknowingly you would recreate that 75% that they took?
I don't think you would necessarily recreate it, but it has the same essence. It has it's the same vibe, I guess you would say. Yeah. But I think it's good to do that, but just spread it out.
Yeah.
Spread out the releases in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think it's good to have a theme or your niche or your thing, what you're known
Yeah.
for. I think it's important for an artist to have that as well. And I think that's kind of what that does is kind of creates a niche or a style.
True.
How do you branch out from that as well? Also, you also create recycle ideas and create a niche, but also branch out and try to make new things.
I would say in the sense of like trying not to chase the ghost, like
What you made before.
yeah, kind of how we said, okay, you lost the 75%. You came back, tried to add 75% back to this 25. It ended up sounding exactly the same.
Mhm.
Which like, okay, you got your project back, but I mean, you're living in the past though. Like you're not kind of progressing in your art, you know? Because you're just chasing that. Like that was the best beat I've ever made in my life, and they took 75% away. Like I gotta make it the best beat again.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. I feel as though a lot of artists could get stuck up in the "oh, they're stealing my art" type thing. But if you're
Yeah,
evolving so fast, I think that kind of fear goes away.
yeah, because they're not stuck in that position for
Because
very long.
if they do steal it,
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's my old shit.
it's like, dude, I dropped that a couple of months ago. Like, yeah, they're just barely dropping this now. So
I'm better now.
yeah,
I'm more skilled. But how does a revision correlate with your relationship with time?
yeah. Kind of how we said at the beginning of this,
Hmm.
time with revising. It's kind of tricky because I can say, we'll take your time revising. You have all the time in the world. You don't let anything rush you. But I feel that if you get into that mindset, then you kind of won't revise anything. Yeah. I'm just giving it space to breathe. You're giving it space to die, pretty much. Like all your
Perfect.
creativity's leaving. Like so I would say that it kind of is in a position where you have to be able to manage that time, but not how we said and like you have a deadline, just rush that shit, just get it out. But do have some type of incentive that keeps you saying, "Hey, I have to work on this." I don't have to like be overbearing on it, and I don't have to overwork it and shit like that. But I do need to here and there add some shit or take away some shit to contribute. Yeah. How do you feel on that? Do you feel like you have like a small window of time for your revising, or are you kind of open?
I kind of view it as a gradual.
Mhm.
I try to edit not all at once, but in small increments of time, walk away. Because I think your perspective changes,
True.
your emotional being.
Yeah, yeah.
It changes throughout the days, and I think revision is a long process. It's not just a day thing, it's days, even months.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely does take some sort of patience and just being able to view that change over periods of time.
Damn. Be accepting of it.
Yeah. Because to see a project change is to see a project evolve into something that you didn't expect it to.
Damn. That's true. How do you not see that change in like a negative light? Because it can kind of come off as like, yeah, well, everything's gonna be changing. It's like, well, then what the fuck am I supposed to do? It's like, well, change with it, bro.
I think, yeah, embracing it, embracing the change as to you don't know, it could be a better hand.
True.
You could be getting dealt a better hand, and you're like, nah.
Damn. So, I mean, that kind of ties into how we brought up intuition a while ago. How do you know when it's good intuition that says like, okay, well, like I'm going for
Like
a better
fear.
hand, or like, yeah, it's just fear kicking in that says, well, shit, like the opportunity's here, man. If it wasn't here, then like, like
Mhm.
why would I be having to go through this and shit? I gotta take it. And you don't even know, like you don't even know if it's
You
a better hand.
you take it out of fear.
Yeah.
Definitely, dude. How do you know if it's a bad hand or a good hand? I think it's definitely an intuition thing. It's a feeling.
You just know.
It's it's a feeling that comes with. I don't think there's anything attached to it because with a bad hand, there's usually stuff attached to it. You want things that are.
That's true.
You want money, so you're like, all right. Well, it sounds like a good
It's
deal.
yeah. I'm gonna pay you this up front, like if you just take this right now, then you'll have like 30 grand in your pocket. But they're not letting you know that like you're gonna get taxed like double for that shit once your contract ends, boom, boom, and all this and that.
How do you know the difference between a good and bad hand?
Good and bad hand. Will it will it affect me negatively? If I have to think that it'll affect me negatively, I feel like that's how I see it as a bad hand.
Could it affect you negatively? But don't you feel like sometimes positive things can affect you negatively at first? Running sucks in a way, but you're getting affected negatively at the initial moment. But really, it's a positive.
But it's like if I took if I took a deal to live in a bad neighborhood and I started running and I got shot, am I supposed to be upset that I got shot? Like
Mhm. What do you mean? What's your point?
like you're saying, okay, like running is bad and all that and stuff like that, but you choose to do it anyway, so you benefit from it.
Mhm.
Of course, like if you see a good deal and shit like that, oh, this is a nice ass house. It's
Sure,
a good price.
it's a bad neighbor.
Bad neighborhood. I'm running and shit like that. I got shot. It's kind of like you can't complain that you got shot. It was a good opportunity. Bad
But it's
placement.
a bad hand.
It's a bad hand behind it. Like
Hmm.
can you get mad at it? I could see a
But you
correlation
wanted
between
something. You
yeah,
wanted a
like
house.
but I mean you want a fit body too. That's why you're running.
True, true.
Why else would you be out there? The middle of the suburbs and shit running. It's not because you want all the milfs and stuff to see you out there running and stuff like that. Well, maybe you do.
Yeah.
And then that's another one. Is that a bad thing? Because you want something, like you want the attention from the milfs. Let me go take my shirt off, go run down the street and shit. Let me spray myself with water like I've been sweating, running miles.
That's a good point. So how do you
Damn.
negotiate in wants whenever you do want something?
I guess it separates it from being good and bad
Mhm.
if you have some type of greed with it.
I guess that's a better
Okay,
point. Greed is
I
different from want.
I wanted to save more money, have more money in my pocket. That's why I took this
A bad house.
low end house, this bad neighborhood, because on paper I had to pay less money than being in the suburbs.
So it's greed for money.
So if you're taking music deals because hey, they got these sponsors and shit like that, it's gonna boost me up and all that stuff. Pretty much karma's gonna hit you in your ass because you wanted that, man. You didn't want anything else. You just
I
wanted
didn't want the music. Just
material shit, like
Mhm.
so I guess it comes into that. Like, yeah, if you're going out and saying, well, I'm gonna go run, it sucks running, but like I need a fit body, I want to be more confident and shit like that. It's selfish, but it's not like you're stepping on anybody else to get this body. Like I
Sure.
guess that's the difference between a good hand and a bad hand. Is if you got to step on somebody to get it, or
It's a bad one.
push somebody else, like it's a bad hand. But then businessmen would watch this and then say, well, no, that's to keep business.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole fucking point. You drown somebody else so you could pass by in the boat.
Mm,
You know, like
point.
they weren't strong enough to get in the boat. You leave that fucker in the water.
Mm.
But I mean, shit.
So I guess
Doesn't
it's
that
subjective.
doesn't that always come to bite you in the ass in some form? Like,
Eventually down the line, yeah. Because I think it's like who you see when you go up is who you see when you go down.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it does in a way. I think you'll benefit more in business whenever you have alliances rather than rivals.
You're a homeless man. You see this man at the Olympics. He became a world class swimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But shit, how do we even get on that tangent?
I know we're all talking about fucking competing against your rivals and shit.
Running in the suburbs as opposed to getting shot in the hood.
That guy, sure.
Can't we even get that monetized on YouTube?
It's too descriptive.
We're gonna have to bleep the you get shot part, you know. It's like, oh, you get they're like, what? That sounds even worse. You get beat in the street. So so what would you say is the difference between necessary changes within your art and just overthinking it? Kind of how I said on the perfectionism aspect.
Necessary changes versus overthinking. I think overthinking makes you confused and makes it a lot of handling.
Makes it overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. I think good revision is something that adds impact, like we were saying earlier, makes you feel more emotional depth. It makes the message more clear and it comes across that way. Rather than overthinking, it makes you think, what am I looking at?
True. You kind of see it as like it's too big
Mm-hmm.
for you to work on. You know, there's too many things that I got to pay attention to.
Yeah. Good revisions, it comes across as you know exactly what you're looking at, what it's trying to say, what you're trying to get across. How do you draw that difference whenever you're revising as to, oh, this is just me overthinking, as to this is a good revision?
I think me overthinking comes in when it's considering the outside sources,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much who you're going to distribute it to, you know, what their reaction's going to be.
Audience.
As opposed to good revision, it's just what it's selfish as hell, but it's what makes me feel good about the project, you know. It's what I kind of get to resonate with. If it's something that I'm overthinking, then I'm probably picturing it from someone else's perspective, like, oh, I need to throw this in there because like they need to relate on this one. It's not necessarily how we said my story that's kind of going into this. It's I'm putting everybody's because like everybody should be able to resonate with it because it's all coming from all this.
Mm-hmm. Where do you draw the line as to drawing from everyone's experience and drawing from your own?
Drawing from someone else's experience, it's pretty much a translation of it within my art, and I can resonate with it, but not that deeply. So if it's mind, I could figure out where it kind of came from. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by where it came from within yourself?
Yeah, like the emotional tie that kind of pretty much is the root of where this project kind of came from.
Is that important to you to know where it came from? Or is it.
Some things I still don't know where it came from. It's just I could resonate with it, but I can't tell you like, hey, this is what brought about that.
No, I feel that.
You know? So I feel like it's okay to not. It's okay in a way not to know where it comes from.
Not to know where your art comes from.
Just to be able to feel it is pretty much the key.
I think that does a lot of good to you as well, just to be able to feel it, even if you don't know necessarily where it's coming from.
Yeah, because you could still get an understanding of those particular emotions.
Mhm. Well, I feel like it feels like you finish a project multiple times.
Mhm.
When do you know a project is done actually? Because I feel like in a way you actually do finish a project multiple times throughout the process.
Yeah, kind of how we said, if you start revising halfway through or quarter through,
Mhm.
but damn, knowing it's done after multiple revisions, I have an issue with that in the sense of how we said it changes the project.
Mhm.
So if I'm going through multiple revisions, sometimes say I don't take that break, how you said, you edit and then you take a break and then you come back and shit. So if I don't do that, I have all these ideas from the past revisions that
Okay.
are trying to come into this one, and it's not that project. It's something entirely different.
Mm.
So in that sense of working on like a project, revising it multiple times, I do need that break, like you said. It's like so I could come back and look at it from a different perspective and not, like I said, bring all those past perspectives into this one.
Yeah, I feel that break is definitely important whenever you're revising. Because just as important as it is to edit, it's important to give it that space to breathe, to really let it take shape in what it is.
Yeah,
Because for you to always be there,
it's overbearing. Yeah,
mm,
that's where you get the overworking it. You're hovering. You're not letting it,
mhm,
like you said, be what it is. You're trying to force it to be something.
yeah, rather than just letting it come out. What would you say? How does revision shape your identity in that way?
I feel like it's weird because how we said a while ago, you revising, it's not who you are, so to say. It is not your identity, but it is
Mm.
at the same point.
At some point, the two do cross.
Exactly. I would say when it's not your identity is when you're very critiqueful, when you're focusing on what you messed up in a project and you're labeling yourself to it. But when you're revising it and you see those flaws and just be able to work through it and not kind of tie it into who you are as a person, I feel like that's how you can get a healthy balance of revising but not having it tear down your whole identity in a way.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think seeing those flaws is and being able to edit around them or use them to your advantage
Yeah,
is what makes the project what it is.
true. If you didn't have that, it wouldn't be this at the
Hmm.
end.
Because it's not necessarily a flaw if you let it be that,
True.
unless you use it to your advantage. Because I think that could be a highlight to the project rather than a flaw. It just depends how you edit it. How do you revise that? Well, what was the initial point?
What- how do you
Yeah.
how do you it's about the identity thing. How do you revise a project and pay attention to those flaws but not label yourself as like that's what makes
Mm.
your identity?
Yeah, because I think revision and identity go hand in hand because your identity is always changing.
Yeah.
You're always revising what you think is cool, what music you listen to.
True, true.
So I think in that way it's ever continuing growth. So to embrace that is to embrace being able to revise in the first place because I don't think it's easy to edit in any means.
In anything, shit.
Because to create something and then cut it away is to not. It feels like you didn't succeed necessarily, but it's
Yeah.
just. refined vision.
It's that it's that rejection aspect that we talked about. You
Hmm.
know, how
I
to
guess
shake
it's a bit of
yourself.
ego as well.
Yeah, because your ego comes into it and says, "We're gonna make something that's
We're
fucking."
the greatest artists to live.
Yeah, but it has to be humbled at some point. It says, "Okay, like you are gonna be that, but like you gotta work for that shit."
But what is it trying to say?
Yeah, what's the message behind it?
Hmm. What do you think that has to do with about the nature of creativity, revision? What does that say about the nature of it?
Yeah, we keep bringing up. It's ever changing, man. It's
You don't know what's coming.
it's pretty much you're in the boat, and it's the waves. You know,
That's a
it's
good
just
example.
randomized. Right?
Whenever you're revising, you're no longer you're in the water.
Yeah,
There's no control anymore.
you're manning the sails and shit.
How do you sell the wave? Because you can't create new things.
Yeah,
It's very rare that you can go back into the creative process after you're already editing.
exactly. It's hard
Very
to
rare.
fall back into that.
So to be able to do that, it's necessarily impossible.
Yeah, to master that skill that the waves are crashing, but you know what to do.
Yeah,
It's
it's a skill to be learned.
it's something that many of holes in the boat have taught you that okay, you don't go that way when they're coming this way. You know, like
Hmm. It
it,
only really comes with experience. Yeah.
yeah, and revising when it comes to the creative process, it kind of teaches you that anything that you make, it's open to change. Anything that you do or how you feel is open to change. Anything is just free to change at any moment. You just have to be okay with it changing.
Embrace the unknown.
Yeah.
Damn, easier said than done, my friend.
That's what I say. People are just like, dude, just get over it. It's like, what you mean, bro? I,
Yeah,
I had all my chips in that shit. Like,
true. But how do you think that changes your view on success and failure revision?
revision lets you know that a failure can be fine tuned enough to be made into a success.
Mm, I love that. It can be changed. A failure can be revised, essentially, into success.
Like it happened, it sucks, it's on your record, but like you can, how do you say, shit, I had the word right there, but you could pretty much revive that shit in a way.
Mhm.
You know, it could be better.
Yeah.
It's not that
No
this is the
failure
end.
is definite.
Yeah, you can build upon that.
Mm,
You can be better than that.
I love that. It's a good point, man. That leads us to the final question.
Hit me with.
Final question. What do you think revision, or how do you think embracing revision plays into a deeper understanding into not only your art, but of yourself?
That growth, growth can be found at any corner or in any project, and you
Mhm.
don't have to look for it. It just happens.
Mm,
Revising is more of a you're kind of forcing it rather than letting it naturally grow because yeah, you're looking for all your fuck ups, you know. You're trying to fine tune it, but at the same time, it just gives me an open understanding as to everything is a work in progress, and once it reaches the end, like you said, it's not necessarily the end. You know, some projects you finish and you think about maybe years later, you think about a part two to a song, or like you're writing something, you got one line in, and you said, okay, this is trash, let me move on. Came back a couple of years later and said, all right, well, shit. And you got like a whole 16 now.
you got a whole hit song.
So you can not so and so abandon things,
Mhm.
but you can leave them to sit
Right.
and become what they need to become while you're also doing the same. as an artist. How do you
I
feel?
love that. I feel like revision has given me a deeper understanding of my art and also myself by giving me a sense of clarity. It's okay that things will come and things will go,
Yeah,
but for them to go, it only makes your vision more clear, your purpose, your direction. So I think ever continually adding and taking away, it's just life itself. So I think that's how I view revision in art.
and
I just had to tie it up that way. I'm sorry. That's Playaz Club, episode 47. Revision. You got anything else, Lex, before we wrap it up?
uh, make your money, make your art. Who cares what anybody says? It's your life. It's what you want to do. Go chase it. And find me on your way up to the top. Shit.
Hell yeah. Peace. Hold on, wait. I forgot to tell y'all, go make sure you buy the merch. The PlayazClubPodcast.com. We need y'all. We need y'all to be supporting. Buy the t-shirts.
Make sure to
PlayazClubPodcast.com.
subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when our beautiful faces will pop up on your screen.
Yeah, sure.
And leave us a comment as to what you would want to see from this, any topics, or just confide in us. Tell us your story.
That concludes episode 47, Revision. Later.
Peace.
Peace.
Later.
Later.